Welcome to the Innovation Forge. So the next piece is our login streaks. So we're just going to create a new subquery, export. So to do a login streak, we're going to use a tool called sequential value groups. I know of this vaguely as like an advancement tool. I don't know if there's a lot of other use cases for it. But what we're going to do is just say, just give me all the login streaks, and let's just do by days. And we're also going to pull what was the first and last login dates for those streaks, just to kind of give us some context. And we'll do some more scoring and modeling specific versions of this in a minute. We'll do 3 different versions of these login streak exports, but this just kind of gives you some context. We are going to be pulling all of their login streaks, so as we get that number of days streak and the kind of first last dates, the streaks, we're just going to separate it with a bar here, or a pipe. And we're not going to limit the rows. If you wanted to limit this to like 5, you could, 5 login streaks. But we're going to go ahead and do our join. And like I said, so we're actually joining to kind of like a pre-built slate tool here. So it's called sequential value groups. And we're going to do this a little bit differently than what you would typically set this up for advancement, so that we can get our logins rather than just year pieces, because we're doing dailies. And we'll do weeklies in a minute. But because we are doing logins, we do want to make sure that we're only counting, did I not? Did I not? Yeah, I'm linked. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's fine. We can do the join here. Yeah. So we're going to join to login. And we're actually going to add a filter on login type. And here you can choose, do you want to count direct logins, these are logins by the student, or impersonated logins. So this could be staff impersonating the student and logging to the portal. We only want to count direct logins. If for some reason you had a use case for counting staff logins, you could. And then we're going to do a subquery export here, because we need to give Slate an anchor to basically build the roadmap of daily logins. So we're going to do a date diff again. And we're just going to do day. And I guess we don't. Let's make this a little bit easier to read than the actual formula. To login date. I'm going to change this to formula. And we're going to do our date diff. And we're going to count the number of days. And what we want to do is count the number of days between an anchor date and the login date. I'm going to go ahead and use, we can probably just build a piece here. You could add a literal here, but I don't think we really need to. So I'm going to use an anchor here of January 1st, 2000. Just so it's a little bit simpler, not trying to what was the day before we launched our instance of Slate. You could do that. I'm just something that's a little bit more just conceptually easy. We're not really going to be looking at this kind of epoch date structure. We're just giving it for a Slate to calculate off of. And this login export is the date that the student logged in. So we're going to compare what's the number of days between January 1st, 2000 and the login. And this just gives Slate a framework to understand when they were logging in. Oh, it's not days, it's just day. And we're going to go ahead and save that. So now Slate can understand the time frame in which we're doing our login streaks. So we can just do sequential value groups count. And this is the number of consecutive days of each of those login streaks. But we can also, just for context, understand those first and last login dates. So if you wanted to kind of look at, oh, this is when students are starting to pick up on their logins, or just start understanding where your streaks are that you're seeing. So we're going to build a concatenate here. I can't really preview the data because this is just a clean slate environment. Well, it looks like they actually have some test records that have, or some records pre-populated in the clean slate that we can use. But and then we have to, at the moment, Slate is viewing these as just days from January 1st, 2000. So we do kind of have to rebuild our date format. So we're going to do another formula. We're going to do a date add. We can just do, again, the number of days. And let's export that sequential minimum. So this is that first login. So right now this is just the number of days from January 1st. So we're going to add that number of days to 2000 0101. And that will give you this new date based off of this anchor date, based off the number of days that their first login was. So I'm just going to call this eboc day to date minimum. And okay. And then we can just make a copy of that to do a maximum. Instead of this minimum, we'll do sequential max. Change this to max. So this is going to be that last day that they logged in for each of their login streaks. So we're going to save a copy there. And you can do whatever kind of formatting you want here. Maybe we just want to add a dash. So this would give you like a 2-day login streak, January 15th, 2025, and then January 16th, 2025, to give you a little bit more context as to when the login streaks were happening. And let's go ahead and just maybe we'll add a sort. So we want those longest login streaks listed first. Or if you wanted to sort it by when the login streaks were happening date-wise, you could do that as well. Again, you'd have to use this epoch date to minimum kind of formatting again to build the dates. Or, I mean, you could, if you just sorted, then it would just be from that January 1st streak anyway, so you're fine. So we're just going to save that. So this is a really great contextual piece to understand how the login streaks are happening in your population.